Have you ever wondered what secrets lie buried in the halls of power, hidden just beneath the surface of history? Picture this, deep within the labyrinthine corridors of the Ministry of Magic, where whispers of the past echo off stone walls. A young archivist named Elara Finch stumbles upon something extraordinary. A hidden chamber, untouched for centuries, its entrance concealed behind towering shelves of dusty records. And there, resting atop an ancient pedestal, a tome bound in cracked leather pulses with a faint, otherworldly glow. Its title, barely legible, reads The Unspoken Statutes. What could it contain, and why has it been hidden away? We'd love to know. Where are you joining us from tonight, and what time is it where you are? Let us know in the comments below, because this isn't just a story about dusty old books and forgotten rooms. It's about the choices that shape history, the weight of secrets, and the quiet courage it takes to uncover them. Alara stands at the edge of a discovery that could rewrite everything we know about the Ministry of Magic. But here's the thing. The moment she reaches for that book, she isn't just breaking protocol. She's stepping into a shadowed world of political intrigue, long-buried scandals, and magic so powerful it was deemed too dangerous to remember. The Ministry of Magic isn't just a backdrop in the wizarding world. It's a living, breathing entity with its own tangled history, a history few have dared to explore. Tonight, we're going deep into its heart, tracing the threads of power, loyalty, and deception that have shaped it from the beginning. From its founding in the wake of the International Statute of Secrecy to the whispered rumors of departments that don't officially exist, this is a journey into the unknown. So settle in, because by the time we're done, you'll never look at the Ministry the same way again. The question is, will Alara open that book? And more importantly, should she? Alara's fingers hover over the cracked leather of the unspoken statutes, the weight of centuries pressing against her palms. The first few pages crumble at her touch, revealing ink faded to ghostly whispers, accounts of a department scrubbed from official records, the Office of Arcane Governance. Its purpose, to oversee magic too volatile, too unpredictable for public knowledge, and at its helm stood Minister Eldritch Marsh, a name that sends a chill down her spine. Historical portraits paint him as a reformer, but these pages tell a different story. A man who bypassed the Wisengamot, silencing dissent with a flick of his wand. One passage stands out like a fresh wound. The seventh statute was not a law, but a culling. Her breath catches. This isn't just forgotten history, it's a reckoning. A floorboard creaks outside the chamber. Alara slams the book shut, but the glow lingers beneath her fingertips, as if the magic itself refuses to be hidden again. When Bartholomew Cuff peers around the shelf, his bushy eyebrows knit in suspicion, she pastes on a smile and murmurs something about cross-referencing goblin trade ledgers. The lie tastes sour. Bartholomew, usually so preoccupied with his own research, lingers a moment too long, his gaze dropping to the dust disturbed around her feet. She's careful to keep her sleeves pulled low, hiding the faint tremor in her hands. Deception, she realizes, is a door that swings both ways. Every half-truth she tells now binds her tighter to this secret. The Office of Arcane Governance didn't just disappear, it was erased. And if Minister Marsh's legacy was dangerous enough to bury, what happens when someone digs it up? The parchment crackles under her grip, as if whispering a warning. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed, but Alara's already stepped through. The real question isn't whether she'll keep reading, it's who else might be watching. The vault's riddle burns in Theo's hands, the parchment unnaturally warm against his skin. To know what was lost, surrender what aches, a memory forged in the fires of regret. His jaw tightens. As an unspeakable, he's trained to avoid exactly this kind of recklessness, prying open doors the ministry welded shut. But Alara's already rolling up her sleeve, pressing her wand to her temple without so much as a flinch. A silvery strand of memory coils from her mind, shimmering with the raw, unvarnished weight of a choice she can't undo. Theo catches a glimpse before she seals it in a vial, a younger Alara, standing in an empty courtroom, the echo of a verdict ringing in her ears. "I voted to convict him," she murmurs, answering Theo's unspoken question. Turns out the evidence was planted. Theo's stomach twists. He knows the case, the infamous arrest of magical maintenance worker Elliot Bain, accused of enchanting the lifts to spy on officials. The scandal nearly tore the Wizengamot apart, but here's the thing the public never learned. Bain died in Azkaban before his appeal. Theo's fingers twitch toward his own temple, hesitating. His greatest regret isn't some noble mistake, it's smaller, uglier. A summer afternoon in the Nott family library, his father's voice slithering through the shelves. Blood matters more than truth. And 12-year-old Theo, nodding along. The vial trembles in Elara's grip as she kneels before the vault's seamless wall. The moment the memory touches the stone, the air thrums with a sound like 100 locks, clicking open at once. But as the hidden door grinds inward, Theo grabs her wrist. "You realize this isn't just about uncovering secrets," he hisses. "It's about who gets to define them." The darkness beyond the threshold smells of iron and petriture, the unmistakable scent of magic that's been waiting. And somewhere in the shadows, something shifts. Not a sound, but a presence, patient as a coiled serpent. The real riddle was never how to enter. It's whether what's inside was meant to stay buried. The air inside the vault is thick with the scent of aged parchment, and something sharper, ozone, like the aftermath of a spell. Elara's fingertips brush against the first scroll. Its edge is brittle as autumn leaves, and the moment she unrolls it, the ink begins to move. Names slither across the surface, vanishing one by one, as if unseen hands are scrubbing them away. Purge of the Dissenting 47, the header reads, though only 23 names remain legible. Her stomach lurches as she spots a familiar surname, Greengrass. Not just a family from the history books, but the same Greengrass, who now chairs the Department of International Magical Cooperation. Theo's voice is low, urgent. Look at the dates. Every disappearance coincides with a shift in ministry policy, restrictions on wand permits, the disbanding of the Magical Creatures Advocacy League, all under the guise of security. The scrolls don't just accuse Marsh, they implicate the system itself. A ledger falls open, revealing a list of assets, reassigned properties, vaults, even family heirlooms, all funneled to a handful of surnames. The same surnames that dominate the Wizengamot today. Then Theo freezes, his wand light catching on a scrap of vellum tucked beneath the rest. It's a map, so faded it's nearly translucent, but the outline is unmistakable. The ministry's current layout, with one addition, a narrow passage branching off from the minister's office. That's not on any blueprint, Alara whispers. The dotted line leads to a chamber labeled Marsh's Sanctum, buried directly beneath where the current minister's desk must sit. A cold realization settles over them. This vault wasn't just hidden, it was curated. The scrolls, the map, even the riddle that demanded their regrets. It all feels like a trail of breadcrumbs, laid by someone who knew the truth would fester if sealed away forever. Theo exhales sharply. You don't build a back door unless you expect someone to use it. The scroll in Alara's hand suddenly grows warm, the ink darkening as new words bloom across it. A fresh line, as if written in real time. The 7th statute survives, and then, below it, a single looping signature that makes her blood run cold. E. Marsh. The parchment crumbles to ash, but the message lingers in the air between them, heavy with implication. Whatever Marsh buried, it wasn't just his secrets. It was a trap, one that's been waiting centuries to spring. Theo's fingers tighten around his wand as he leans in, his voice barely above a whisper. This goes beyond us, Alara. If Marsh's secrets stretch into the present, we need to alert the Department of Mysteries. There are protocols. She cuts him off with a sharp shake of her head, her eyes flicking toward the vault's entrance. And what if the people we report to are the ones who have been guarding these secrets? Think about it. Why else would this room still exist, untouched, if someone in power wasn't ensuring it stayed hidden? The ledger's reassigned assets flash in her mind, generations of wealth and influence built on buried truths. Theo exhales through his teeth, running a hand through his hair. So what's your plan? Storm the minister's office and demand answers. There's a bite to his words, but beneath it, something else. A fear, not of getting caught, but of what they might unleash. Elara unrolls the ancient map again, tracing the dotted line to Marsh's Sanctum. We find the back door. If the minister's involved, we'll have proof. If not, maybe we'll finally learn who really pulls the strings. A creak from the corridor outside makes them both freeze. Theo extinguishes his wand light, plunging them into darkness. The sound isn't the settling of old stone. It's footsteps, deliberate and slow. Alara's pulse hammers in her throat as a sliver of light cuts across the floor from the ajar door. A shadow stretches into the vault, elongated and unnaturally still. Then, just as suddenly, it retreats. Theo grabs her arm, his breath hot against her ear. Someone knows we're here. The realization hangs between them, heavier than the dust in the air. Whoever's out there didn't stumble upon them by accident. They are being watched, and if the vault was a trap, then the shadow in the archives isn't just a threat. It's a warning. Alara's grip on the map tightens. One last step, she murmurs, then we decide who to trust. But as they slip into the corridor, the flicker of a robe vanishing around the corner tells them one thing for certain. The decision might not be theirs to make. The shadow resolves into a hunched figure draped in moth-eaten robes, her silver hair escaping a lopsided bun in wild tendrils. Imogen Thistlewood's name still surfaces in whispers among archival apprentices. The historian who vanished overnight after publishing The Fractured Foundations of Magical Governance. Her hands tremble as she grips Alara's wrist, her nails leaving crescent moons in the skin. You've seen the ledger, she breathes, not a question, but an accusation. Then you know the ministry isn't just corrupt, it's hollow, like termites chewed through its bones and left the facade standing. Her gaze darts to the vault behind them, her voice dropping to a rasp. Marsh's sanctum isn't a room, it's a threshold. Theo steps between them, his wand raised defensively. You're supposed to be dead. The obituary ran in the Daily Prophet 20 years ago. Imogen's laugh is a dry rattle. The first lesson of history. Boy, the winners write the eulogies. She pulls back her sleeve, revealing a jagged scar circling her wrist like a manacle. They try to obliviate me, but some memories they root too deep. Her eyes lock onto Alara's. You remind me of myself, stubborn, starved for truth. That's why you'll end up like me, if you keep digging a ghost in your own life. A chill slithers down Alara's spine as Imogen presses a crumpled note into her palm. The paper smells of damp and decay, the ink blurred except for 3 words: seek the Peverell Papers. Marsh's first purge targeted the Peverell family, Imogen murmurs. Not for their Deathly Hallows obsession for their records. They documented everything. Find what's left, and you'll understand why the ministry still fears a house that's been dust for centuries. Theo grabs Alara's elbow. This is madness. We're unspeakables, not vigilantes. If there's evidence, we take it through proper channels. Imogen's voice cracks like a whip. The channels are the problem. The Weisengamat, the Department of Mysteries, they're all custodians of the lie. She yanks a chain from her neck, thrusting a tarnished key at Alara. Gringotts Vault 713. Look beneath the gold. Theo's resolve hardens. We're leaving now, but Alara's fingers close around the key, her other hand brushing the scar on Imogen's wrist. The skin is raised in precise, angular patterns, not a wound, but a rune, the same one etched into the unspoken statutes. Imogen catches her realization and gives a grim nod. They mark us all eventually. Footsteps echo in the distance, too rhythmic to be accidental. Imogen shoves them toward a concealed alcove. Go, and remember, the worst lies aren't the ones they tell you. They are the ones you tell yourself to keep believing. As the darkness swallows her, Alara notices the hem of Imogen's robes is singed, the edges still glowing faintly ember red. Like someone who's walked through fire and hasn't quite escaped it. The Peverell Papers, 3 words that send Theo's stomach into knots as he watches Alara trace the faded ink of the Gringotts key with her thumb. The vault number alone is enough to set his teeth on edge. 713. Not just any deposit box, but one of the oldest, deepest chambers in the Wizarding Bank, reserved for artifacts too volatile for standard storage. This isn't just a collection of old documents, he mutters, pacing the cramped confines of Alara's flat. If the Peverells hid something there, it's because it could burn through lesser wards like parchment. Alara barely glances up from the ministry floor, plans sprawled across her table, her quick fingers marking guard rotations in crimson ink, which is exactly why the Department of Magical Law Enforcement seized it, she counters. They've locked it in the evidence vault, behind enough enchantments to make an unspeakable blush. But tomorrow, she taps the date circled on the parchment, the start of the Krupp trial, the biggest magical corruption case in decades. Every auror and scribe will be crammed into courtroom 10, the perfect distraction. Theo's chair screeches as he shoves it back. You're talking about breaking into a high-security ministry vault. Not sneaking into the archives, stealing classified evidence. Do you hear yourself? His voice cracks, and he hates it, hates how fear bleeds through. Alara finally meets his gaze, and the fire in her eyes is worse than any shout. You saw what Imogen showed us. The Peverells didn't just document history, they challenged it. If their papers survive the purge, they are the only proof left that Marsh's system never really ended, just evolved. A knock at the door freezes them both. Not a fist, but the sharp tap-tap of a ministry memo folded into a paper bird. Alara catches it midair, her face draining of color as it unfolds in her hands. Cuff wants me in his office. Now, the words hang like a blade. Theo's mind races. Did Bartholomew notice the disturbed dust in the vault? Or worse, did someone else see them with Imogen? Elara crumples the memo, her jaw set. We're out of time. Theo grabs her wrist before she can stride for the door. Listen to me. If they are onto us, walking into that office is suicide. We need to disappear properly. Not just a disillusionment charm, but new identities, portkeys, the works. For a heartbeat, he thinks she'll agree. Then her fingers tighten around the Gringotts key. Or we finish what we started, before they can bury the truth deeper. Theo's pulse hammers in his throat. He's spent his life following rules, trusting the system, even when it left scars. But the look on Alara's face isn't recklessness, it's resolve, and that terrifies him more than any curse, because he knows, with a sinking certainty, that if he walks away now, he'll always wonder, what if they had opened the Peverell Papers? Somewhere in the distance, a clock tower chimes. The trial begins at dawn. Bartholomew Cuff's office smells of bergamot and something sharper, dried ink, perhaps, or the faint metallic tang of a recently cast silencing charm. Alara keeps her hands loose at her sides as she steps inside, but her pulse thrums in her wrists like a trapped bird. Cuff doesn't look up from his paperwork, his quill scratching out a sentence with deliberate slowness before he finally speaks. I've always admired your dedication, Alara. Most archivists wouldn't risk their necks for a footnote. His voice is warm, almost fond, but the way his fingers tap the desk, 3 precise beats, sends a prickle down her spine. She feigns confusion, tilting her head. I'm not sure what you mean, sir. The goblin trade ledgers required cross-referencing. Spare me. The paternal mask slips as he leans forward, the lamplight carving shadows under his eyes. You were in the 7th sublevel last night, a place even unspeakables need clearance to enter. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. Tell me, what exactly were you hoping to find? Elara's mouth goes dry. There's no plausible lie left, so she does the only thing she can. She pivots. I found Minister Marsh's records, the real ones. Cuff's quill snaps in his grip. The splintered feather drifts to the desk between them, and for a heartbeat, his face is utterly unguarded. Not anger. Not even surprise, fear. Then it's gone, smoothed into bureaucratic neutrality as he stands, straightening his robes. You're exhausted, Alara. Too many late nights chasing ghosts. He rounds the desk, his hand landing on her shoulder with a weight that feels like a threat. Take the rest of the week off, and when you return, stick to the approved archives. She's almost at the door when she hears it, the whisper of fabric against stone, a rustle that isn't Cuff's. Then his voice, hushed but urgent. She knows about the oath. The response is too muffled to make out. but the words coil around her ribs like a vice. The oath, not a secret then, a pledge, and if the ministry's corruption is bound by magic older than any law, how many others have been forced to kneel before it? The click of the door latch echoes like a verdict. The alcove smells of damp stone, and the bitter tang of Theo's fear as he presses a crumpled note into Alara's palm, scrawled in a frantic hand. The words, "Eternal silence isn't policy, it's a curse," nearly tear through the parchment. His voice shakes as he recounts the whispers from his last unspeakable briefing, a ritual older than the ministry itself, binding tongues with something darker than magic. It's not just secrecy, Alara. It rewrites you, turns dissent into dust in your own mind. His fingers twitch toward his temple, as if he can already feel the erosion. Ilara's stomach drops. Suddenly, Imogen's scar makes horrible sense, not a punishment, but a failed one. The oath wasn't designed to be broken. Those who tried were left hollow, their memories clawed out like rotten wood. That's how they've kept it quiet, she murmurs, the pieces slotting into place. Not by hiding the truth, by making sure no one remembers it long enough to speak. Theo grabs her shoulders, his breath hot and ragged. You think the Peverells didn't try? Their family died for this. Banished from records, from graves, even from portraits. Do you really believe a pile of old papers will change anything? His grip tightens, desperation sharpening his words. Walk away, please, before you forget why you started. For a heartbeat, she almost wavers. Then the key in her pocket grows warm against her thigh, as if reacting to her resolve. That's the point, Theo. They've spent centuries making sure no one remembers how to fight back. But the Peverells, they didn't just remember, they recorded it. She steps back, his hands falling empty between them. I won't end up another ghost in the archives. Theo's face shudders. Then you'll end up worse. He turns, his cloak swirling like a curtain, falling between them, and for a moment, Alara wants to call him back. To pretend this is just another late-night research debate, not the fracture of something irreparable. But the silence stretches, thick with finality, until all that's left is the echo of his footsteps and the weight of the key burning against her skin. Alone, she realizes this is how it starts, not with a bang, but with a choice no one else will ever remember you made. Somewhere deep in the ministry's bones, a clock chimes. The trial is about to begin, and Elara Finch is already running out of time. The air in the Department of Magical Law Enforcement hums with the restless energy of a hive. Oars rushing past, memos darting like startled fireflies, all eyes fixed on the live feed of the corrupt trial. Alara keeps her head down, the two large sleeves of her borrowed clerk's robes swallowing her hands as she clutches a stack of forged witness affidavits. The disguise is flimsy, but the chaos is thick enough to hide in. Every third step, her shoulder brushes against the cool stone walls, tracing the hidden grooves of centuries-old enchantments. The evidence vault door looms ahead, its wrought iron filigree pulsing faintly with containment spells. Then the ward flares. A searing jolt races up her arm as the lock rejects her tampered key, the metal glowing cherry red before crumbling to ash. The hallway lights flicker, then blaze crimson silent alarms triggering in every aura's pocket. Alara doesn't hesitate. Her wand flicks up, a confundus charm, slithering toward the nearest guard, just as he reaches for his badge. His hand spasms midair, his gaze going glassy as he pivots on his heel and shouts down the opposite corridor. Breach in the atrium. The lie buys her 5 seconds. 5 seconds to snatch the fallen parchment from her scattered notes. 5 seconds to register the single page she's salvaged. A fragment of Marsh's study map, its ink already fading like a dying breath. Boots thunder around the corner. Alara spins, her disapparition crack tearing through the air like a gunshot. The last thing she sees is an Auror's outstretched hand, fingertips brushing the space where her shoulder had been. His expression, not of anger but grim recognition. They knew, not just about the vault, about her. The alley she materializes in stinks of rotting wood and stale fire whiskey. Her knees hit the cobblestones as the adrenaline crashes, the map trembling in her grip. The fragment shows only one clear landmark, a narrow staircase spiraling down from the minister's private office, labeled Via Occultus, the hidden way. But the rest, the wards, the traps, the reason Marsh built a path where no path should be, is lost to the torn edge of the page. Somewhere across London, a siren wails. Not muggle, not quite magical either, a sound woven between, meant for hunting those who slip through cracks. Alara presses her palm to the damp brick wall, steadying herself. They'll be watching the flu networks, the portkeys, every registered apparition point. But the map in her hand whispers of older roads, roads the ministry hasn't fully erased. And that's the terrible, beautiful truth about secrets. They leave scars. Even when you bury them, the ground never quite lies flat again. The study is a tomb of ink and whispers. Alara staggers back as the names on the walls shift like living things, each one etched not in pigment, but in something darker. Scabs of dried magic, pulsing faintly, as if the very stone remembers the lives purged from history. The air tastes metallic, thick with the residue of 100 silenced voices. At the room's heart, a pensive glows, its silver surface swirling with a memory that doesn't just replay, it pulls, dragging her into the past before she can resist. Minister Eldritch Marsh's face fills her vision, his features sharp with panic as he backs against his own desk. The advisors encircling him aren't the stately figures from official portraits. Their eyes are flat, their wands raised not in protest, but in ceremony. The oath ensures stability. One murmurs, and the words slithered through the memory like a curse. Marsh's lips move, but no sound escapes. That's when Alara realizes this isn't just a record of his death. It's the moment the oath was born. The advisor's chant rises, their magic weaving a net of compulsion, so potent it warps the very air. A spell that doesn't just bind tongues, but rewrites will. Marsh's final scream is swallowed by the ritual, his body collapsing not from a killing curse, but from the weight of the enchantment, carving itself into his bones. The memory spits Alara back into the present, just as the door slams shut behind her. The names on the walls blaze crimson, their edges smoking as if freshly branded. You were never meant to see this. Cuff's voice is a blade against her spine. He steps from the shadows, his wand tip glowing not with threat, but with something worse, resignation. The oath isn't a choice, Alara. It's a chain. One every minister, every department head, even the portraits on these walls have worn since that night. His free hand gestures to the pensive, where the memory still churns. Marsh tried to break it and see where that got him. Alara's fingers brush the vial at her belt. Theo's stolen regret, still shimmering with his confession. A desperate plan forms. If the oath feeds on defiance, maybe it can choke on truth. You're wrong, she says, her voice steadier than she feels. Chains only work if you forget they're there. The vial uncorks with a whisper, its silvery strand coiling toward the pensive. Cuff's eyes widen not in anger, but in something like grief. Don't. The collision of memory and magic ignites the room. The walls scream as the names dissolve, their letters twisting into a single phrase that hangs burning in the air. The 7th statute was never a law. It was a key. Then the floor vanishes beneath her feet, and Alara falls not down, but through, the study unraveling around her like a poorly spun lie. The last thing she hears is Cuff's roar of frustration, or perhaps relief, as the oath's grip splinters at last. Darkness, then, a hand catches hers. Not Cuff's, not Theo's. A stranger's fingers, rough with ink and time, yank her into a corridor lined with doors that weren't there a moment ago. Took you long enough, rasps a voice like crumbling parchment. Imogen Thistlewood's grin is a knife slash in the gloom. Welcome to the other side of the silence. Cuff's wand trembles between them, its tip glowing a sickly green. Not the bright flash of a killing curse, but the slow, creeping hue of a memory charm meant to unravel her mind thread by thread. His voice cracks with something almost like regret. You could have been one of us, Alara. Safe, protected. The office walls seem to press closer, the portraits of past ministers leaning in, their painted eyes gleaming with a hunger too sharp for canvas. Alara doesn't step back. Instead, she laughs. A raw, jagged sound that startles even her. Safe. You call this safe? Her hand dips into her pocket, fingers brushing the cool metal of the snitch she'd planted on his bookshelf hours earlier, its wings now vibrating against her palm. You're not protecting the ministry. You're preserving a lie so old even the stones whisper it. Cuff's spell lashes out, a serpent of light aimed at her temple. She ducks, not fast enough to avoid it entirely. The charm grazes her shoulder, and for a heartbeat, the room wavers. Names slip from her grasp like sand. Peverell. Marsh, the 7th statute. But then the snitch in her pocket sings, a high, clear chime that echoes through the office, and suddenly, the air itself seems to shudder. Every memo board in the ministry erupts with their voices, Cuff's plea, Alara's defiance, the damning truth of the oath, spilling into corridors and cubicles like floodwater. The portraits recoil, their faces twisting in horror as the enchantment that's bound them for centuries flickers like a dying candle. Cuff staggers, clutching his throat as if the oath itself is unraveling inside him. What have you done? He rasps. The door bursts open. Theo stands framed in the doorway, his wand raised, Imogen at his shoulder, with a pack of wide-eyed archivists at her back. Their robes singed, their hands trembling, but their eyes alight with something Alara hasn't seen in years, recognition. We heard, Theo says simply. Behind him, a murmur builds, a chorus of whispers rising from the crowd, each one a tiny fracture in the oath's foundation. Cuff's knees hit the carpet. The sound is soft, almost lost beneath the growing clamor, but Alara feels it in her bones. The oath isn't broken, not yet. But for the first time in centuries, it's bleeding, and the ministry, at long last, is waking up. Chaos ripples through the ministry like a shockwave, memos exploding into flame midair as the truth takes flight. The recording Alara's voice, Cuff's confession, the centuries-old oath, laid bare echoes from every enchanted quill and memo board, drowning out the frantic shouts of aurors trying to contain the damage. Wizards and witches freeze in corridors, their faces draining of color as they realize the foundation beneath their feet isn't just cracked, it's hollow. Down in the atrium, a junior clerk drops a stack of scrolls, the crash swallowed by the roar of the crowd as Cuff is frog-marked past, his robe singed where someone's hex found its mark. His eyes lock with Alara's for one searing instant, not anger, not even betrayal, but something worse, understanding. He knew this day would come. They all did. Theo finds her leaning against the wreckage of a shattered prophecy, orb display, his apology stumbling out between gasps. I thought you were reckless. I didn't realize. Alara cuts him off with a tired wave. It's not his doubt that stings. It's the way he still flinches when an unspeakable passes, the ingrained instinct to lower his voice. Some chains don't break clean. Across the room, a cluster of young archivists whisper behind their hands, shooting her glances that swing between awe and terror. Hero or heretic, the line blurs depending on who's telling the story. Then the minister's voice booms from the enchanted ceiling, magnified to drown the din. Promises of reform, of transparency, of never again. The words are polished, practice the same ones Marsh probably uttered before the knives came out. Elara's fingers tighten around the scrap of vellum, still tucked in her sleeve, its edge jagged where she tore it from Marsh's Sanctum wall. One line pulses beneath her thumb like a heartbeat. The 7th statute survives. Because that's the cruel joke of systems built on lies. They don't collapse when exposed. They adapt. Somewhere in the wreckage, a hand-painted sign reading, "Truth now," is already being trampled underfoot as the crowd surges toward the next spectacle. But as Alara slips into the shadows of a disused flue corridor, she catches a flicker of movement. A figure in moth-eaten robes melting into the wall, leaving behind the faintest trace of ozone and a single, looping rune scorched into the stone. A message or an invitation. The fight isn't over. It's just gone underground. Again. The ink bleeds into the parchment like a slow confession as Alara presses her quill to the first page of the unspoken statutes, revised. The attic safe house smells of damp wool and burnt coffee. The only light a guttering candle that paints their shadows giants against the slanted ceiling. Across the table, Theo mutters over a salvaged ledger, cross-referencing Marsh's purges with modern day, promotions, same families, different titles, while Imogen stitches another false identity into the lining of her cloak with hands that haven't stopped shaking since the ministry raid. This isn't the Grand Rebellion storybook's promise. No roaring crowds, no banners unfurled, just 3 fugitives and a stolen printing press, charmed to whisper its secrets only to those who know how to listen. Alara's opening line is simple, stark. History isn't written by the victors, it's erased by them. The quill hesitates. She'd imagined this moment 100 times in the archives, but now the weight of it settles differently, not as a scholar's curiosity, but as a promise sharp enough to draw blood. Theo slides a scrap of newsprint across the table. The Daily Prophet obituary column lists 3 names, a retired auror, an elderly wandmaker, and her breath hitches, Bartholomew Cuff, devoted public servant. The cause is vague, sudden illness. Imogen's chuckle is a dry rasp. Funny how the truth always looks like poison in hindsight. Her needle stabs the fabric with surgical precision, embroidering a protective rune disguised as mere decoration. They've each chosen their weapons carefully. Theo forges access, passes to the Department of Mysteries, his unspeakable training turning against the system that shaped him. Imogen cultivates informants among the house elves and portrait ghosts, the only witnesses no one thinks to silence. And Alara, she writes, not the sanitized versions for public consumption, but the brutal footnotes, the obliviations gone wrong, the vaults of confiscated wands, the way the Wisengamott's voting records always seem to shift after midnight. A floorboard creaks upstairs. 3 wands snap up in unison, but it's just the old building settling, or perhaps the ghoul they've been feeding ministry gossip to. Its groans a useful cover for midnight meetings. Theo exhales first, rubbing the fresh scar along his jaw where a stray curse grazed him during their last close call. We're not just documenting history, he murmurs, staring at the stack of blank parchment waiting to be filled. We're baiting a trap with it. Alara dips her quill again. The candlelight catches the silver strands in Imogen's hair, turning them molten. For the first time, she notices how the older woman's fingers linger near her own hidden scar, not in fear, but as a reminder. The oath tried to hollow her out, but it left something behind, something harder, something that remembered. Outside, rain drums against the cobblestones, washing away footprints that never existed. Somewhere in the ministry, a memo bursts into flames before reaching its destination. The words, 7th Statute, curling to ash midair. And in a nameless attic, a book begins to fill with truths too dangerous to speak aloud. The work is slow, the work is deadly, but when Alara blows out the candle at dawn, the darkness feels different, not like an ending, but like the space between breaths, holding the shape of what's yet to come. The records department smells different now, less like dust and secrets, more like fresh varnish and the sharp tang of surveillance charms. Alara runs her fingers along the newly restored shelves, their wood still pale and unmarked by time. The official story claims the fire was an accident, faulty wand work during renovations, but the way the junior archivists flinch when she passes tells another tale. Her desk waits exactly where she left it, though the drawer sticks when she tugs it open. Inside, nestled between blank parchment and a dried-up inkwell, lies a single slip of paper. The handwriting isn't familiar, but the message sears her retinas. The oath endures. Theo finds her staring at the note, his reflection warped in the polished brass nameplate, now bolted to her desk. Senior Archivist Finch, a title that tastes like ashes. He doesn't ask. He doesn't need to. His fingers brush the edge of the paper, and the ink shimmers briefly, revealing a second layer of text beneath. Seek the 7th key where the first lie began. Theo's jaw tightens. They're watching us closer than ever, he murmurs, his eyes flicking to the enchanted memo board on the wall. Its surface a little too glossy, its edges a little too sharp. Elara folds the note into her palm, the edges pressing crescent moons into her skin. Of course they are. Her smile is a blade unsheathed. That's how we know we're getting somewhere. Outside the window, the ministry's golden statues gleam in the afternoon light, their faces newly recast no longer stern arbiters of justice, but smiling guardians of a reformed system. The irony isn't lost on her. Revolutions always end with someone chiseling new lies into marble. Theo grips her wrist, his voice dropping to a whisper only she can hear. They'll come for you, not with curses, not at first, with promotions, with access, with a nice, quiet office where your words can't reach the wrong ears. His thumb traces the scar on her wrist, the one that still aches when it rains. That's how they break you, by making you part of the machine. A memo flutters onto her desk, its crimson seal marking it as urgent. Request for consultation on historical accuracy of new Wisengamot training manuals. Alara lets out a breath that's half laugh, half surrender. Too late. She tucks the note into her sleeve, where it hums against her pulse like a second heartbeat. Down in the atrium, a crowd gathers around the latest proclamation, a shiny new Office of Magical Transparency, its banner embroidered with interlocking hands. The symbolism would be touching if Alara didn't recognize the stitching. Same hands that bound Marsh's oath, same threads, different pattern. Theo's right, of course. They'll come for her, but as she watches a young clerk slip a forbidden text into her robes when she thinks no one's looking, Alara realizes something vital. The fight was never about toppling the ministry. It was about planting seeds in its cracks. She dips her quill into fresh ink and begins drafting her response to the Wisengamot's request. Every word will be measured. Every citation, impeccable and tucked between the lines. In the spaces only the desperate think to look. The real work continues. Somewhere in the bowels of the building, a door marked maintenance creaks, open on hinges that haven't squeaked in decades. The seventh key isn't a thing, after all. It's a place, and Elara Finch has always been very good at finding her way. The coded message burns against Alara's palm, its parchment unnaturally warm, as if the ink itself is alive. The symbols aren't any cipher she recognizes, not ministry standard, not even the old Peverell codes they've painstakingly reconstructed. These markings twist like vines, their edges shimmering with a faint, malevolent glow. Theo leans over her shoulder, his breath catching as he traces one looping character. That's not a language, he murmurs. It's an echo. Imogen's arthritic fingers snatch the parchment away, holding it up to the flickering lantern light. The shadows it casts aren't right, too long, too jagged, forming shapes that vanish when you look directly at them. The reckoning, she breathes, her voice sandpaper rough. Not a rallying cry, a ritual. The word hangs in the attic's stale air, thickening it like smoke. Alara's mind races. Marsh's oath was bad enough. A spell woven through the ministry's foundations, binding tongues and rewriting minds. But this, the reckoning, sounds like something older, darker, a thing not meant to control, but to consume. Theo's wand hand twitches toward his sleeve, where his own scar, fresh and angry, still throbs from their last encounter with the so-called reformers. If they're digging up pre-statute magic, they're not just after power, he says quietly. They're rewriting reality. Downstairs, the printing press stutters mid-cycle, its enchanted gears grinding to a halt. The broadsheet it was halfway through printing, a damning exposé on the new Office of Magical Transparency, now sports a smear of ink in the shape of a handprint. No one touched it. The attic's single window rattles, though there's no wind. Imogen's grip on Alara's shoulder tightens, her nails biting through the fabric. They've found us, not a guess, a certainty. The message wasn't intercepted. It was delivered. Theo's wand flares to life, its light catching the dust motes, swirling in a pattern too deliberate to be chance. They are not just forming symbols now, they are counting down. 5, 4, 3. Alara slams the parchment onto the table, her other hand yanking a vial of stolen memories from her belt. Then we give them a reckoning of our own. The glass shatters against the wood, releasing not silvery strands, but a searing burst of crimson light. Every corrupted law, every purged name, every silenced scream they've spent months unearthing. The dust explodes outward as the attic door bursts open, but it's not Aurors who surge inside. The figures are robed, yes, but their hoods are edged with gold thread. Senior undersecretaries, department heads, faces Alara has seen 100 times in the cafeteria, the lifts, the Daily Prophet. Their wands are drawn, but their eyes are already black. History never truly sleeps, Imogen had said. Turns out, neither do the things that feed on it. The air in the ministry atrium crackles with the oppressive weight of 1,000 disillusionment charms. The crowd's murmurs swallowed by the gilded arches overhead. Alara's boots slip on the polished marble as she darts between witches in ceremonial robes, their faces masks of forced serenity. The centennial ceremony banners sway too rhythmically, their enchantments pulsing in time with something deeper, something alive beneath the floorboards. Theo grips her elbow, his whisper raw. It's not just the oath they're reinstating, it's the feed. His free hand taps the base of his skull, where the scar from his unspeakable initiation still twinges. The oath didn't just erase memories, it fed on them, and they're hungry again. A hush ripples through the crowd as the minister ascends the dais, her smile too wide, her robes too heavy with embroidered runes. The speech begins flowery platitudes about unity, progress, the unbroken chain of magical governance. But Alara's eyes lock onto the locket at the minister's throat, its surface writhing with shadows. The reckoning isn't a ritual, it's a vessel. Imogen's voice rasps in her ear, smuggled through a charmed galleon. Wireless crews in position, but the signal won't hold if they trigger the galleon goes dark. Across the atrium, a flock of memo birds explodes midair, their ashes forming the shape of an hourglass. Out of time, Alara doesn't think. She moves, shoving past a gaggle of bewildered diplomats, her wand slashing downward in a sharp arc. The spell isn't elegant, a crude sonorous charm, spliced with a truth-revealing hex she'd cobbled together from banned texts. The feedback shrieks through the wireless speakers, a sound like tearing fabric. Every head whips toward her as her amplified voice booms. Ask her about the 7th vial. The minister pales, not at the accusation, but at the phrase itself, words that shouldn't exist outside the oath's grip. The locket pulses black, chaos erupts, Oars apparate in a staccato of cracks, but the crowd is stirring now, the spell of complacency broken. Theo barrels onto the dais, flipping open the minister's ceremonial folio to reveal the damning diagram inside, a blueprint of the ministry's foundation stones, each one marked with a name. Not supporters, sacrifices. Alara's wand presses to the minister's locket, her voice raw. You wanted a reckoning, let's give them one. The charm detonates in a shower of obsidian shards, releasing a scream so vast it shakes the chandeliers. The sound isn't human, it's the oath itself, unraveling in real time, centuries of stolen voices, howling free. The floor trembles, but the walls don't crumble. The gold leaf peels back to reveal older stone beneath, etched with older truths. Somewhere in the crowd, a junior clerk drops her scrolls, her gasp echoing like the first crack in a dam. They lied to us, and for the first time in history, the ministry has no rebuttal. The memorial's marble surface is cool under Alara's fingertips, the names etched into it still sharp against the grain. 47, in all, not just the dissenting 47 from Marsh's time, but every soul purged in the silent wars that followed. The stone drinks in the morning light, turning gold where the sun touches it, as if the past itself is warming to the present. Behind her, Theo's footsteps are deliberate, his boots scuffing against the freshly laid tiles of the atrium. He doesn't speak at first, just holds out the parchment. Their report, stamped with the new Office of Archival Truth seal, its edges frayed from too many hands passing it back and forth in the night. First printing's done, he says, voice rough with exhaustion. They'll be in every ministry department by noon. Alara doesn't take it. Not yet. Her eyes linger on one name near the bottom. Elliot Bain, the maintenance worker whose wrongful conviction started her own unraveling of the oath. The stone doesn't tell his whole story. It can't, but it's a start. They'll fight this, she murmurs, nodding toward the report. Not with curses, with committees. With revisions, with oversight. The word tastes bitter. Theo's grin is knife sharp. Let them, we've got the one thing they can't outvote. He taps the side of his head. People know now, you can't obliviate a revolution. A gust of wind ripples through the atrium, carrying the scent of ink and ozone from the printing presses below. Somewhere in the crowd, a young witch in Department of Mysteries robes hesitates, then steps forward to trace a name on the memorial. Her great-grandfather's, maybe, or a mentor's. The gesture is small, but it sends a ripple through the onlookers. One by one, others approach, fingers brushing the stone as if to say, "You existed." "We see you." Theo's shoulder bumps against Alara's. "You realize what you've done, right?" His tone is lighter now, almost teasing. "Archivists are going to be terrifying from now on." She laughs, but the sound catches in her throat as the sunlight shifts, illuminating a patch of wall where the old gold leaf lies stripped away. Beneath it, someone's carved a single rune, the same one Imogen bore on her wrist. A reminder, or a warning, maybe both. Alara finally takes the report, her thumb smudging the still damp ink. "We remember," she whispers, "not just the dead. Not just the lies, but the cost of silence, and the price of breaking it." The memorial stands solid behind them, but the air hums with something new, not the heavy silence of secrets, but the low, steady murmur of voices weaving the past into the present. The road ahead is long, and the archives may be open, but the real work, the remembering, the reckoning has only just begun, and this time it belongs to everyone.